I want to tell you all a story. A story of how one man's degeneracy led to a match made in hell. There's this publisher called Marvelous. They're mostly known now for games like Rune Factory and Story of Seasons, but years ago they published anime games too. Uso Renkin, Reborn, Oh My Goddess, even Negima. But the IP they used that left the greatest legacy was none other than Ikkitousen. Marvelous's first Ikkitousen game, Shining Dragon, was developed by Dream Factory, a company known for making damn near the same game for everybody that pays them. Crimson Tears, Appleseed EX, The Bouncer, Fighting Beauty Wulong.
It's the same shit!
Most of Dream Factory's output on PS2 was either a beat-em-up, a 3D fighter, or technically both, because once you get good at something, of course you're gonna keep doing that same shit as long as you get paid for it. And it's not that hard to make a decent 3D fighter when the founder of your company is the father of 3D fighters, Seiichi Ishii. Before founding Dream Factory, Ishii was the coordinator and designer of Virtua Fighter 1 and the director of Tekken 1 and 2. He then went on to direct the Tobal series and Air Guys. The man's a legend. Shining Dragon has a very basic gameplay loop. Fight through 3 or so waves of enemies, then a boss pulls up, you beat their ass, stage done. It's also, because it's Ikkitousen, very horny. So much so that an English release of the game was cancelled because censoring the clothing damage would compromise the vision of the series, and selling it uncensored would be financially irresponsible. In Japan though, it sold well enough to get a Best Collection re-release. 2 more games too. The next Ikkitousen game, Eloquent Fist, stuck to the same general formula but switched up just about everything else. In the same cost-saving move that Bandai pulled to keep the anime game shovelware flowing, Marvelous jumped from PS2 to PSP. Probably because of that, the full 3D space of Shining Dragon was replaced by a 2D side-scroller. The developer also changed, going from Dream Factory to, in quite possibly the funniest full circle moment, Tamsoft. You see, Tamsoft was the developer of another old 3D fighter, Battle Arena Toshinden. Toshinden was initially promoted by Sony as a Sega Saturn killer and a direct competitor to, no points if you already guessed it right, Virtua Fighter. What makes things even funnier, well, to me at least, was that Dream Factory went on to develop the Toshinden spin-off on Wii. You win some, you lose some, I guess. All good things must come to an end, and Ikkitousen's proper game run ended with Cross Impact in 2011. However, its spirit lived on in the producer's next project. But before we get to that, I want to highlight a Q&A from Shining Dragon. The producer mentioned that the most difficult part of developing Shining Dragon was the looks he got from his female co-workers for all his reference material, most of which he said was from his personal collection. Thinking back on it now, it doesn't really surprise me that a man who was essentially getting paid to scare the hoes thought about what kind of game he wanted to make on 3DS and within 30 seconds landed on big ass titties. That man was Kenichiro Takaki, and his next game was Senran Kagura. When I said Ikkitousen's spirit continued with Senran Kagura, I didn't mean just the horny shit. Tamsoft developed the first game, and just like their rival turned predecessor and successor Dream Factory, they made damn near the same game all over again. Unlike Dream Factory though, Tamsoft evolved alongside Senran Kagura. Senran Kagura started out as a side-scroller, but it didn't stay there. It got a full 3D beat-em-up, a rhythm cooking game, a 2.5D beat-em-up, a more refined 3D game, and a shooter, both of which Ikkitousen pulled up in, a weird nigga simulator, a remake of the first game modeled after the better 3D beat-em-up, a pinball game, and then it died a miserable death when Sony told everybody to cut the horny shit out. Tamsoft was attached to most of these projects. Neptunia tried to smuggle it back into relevance, but these days all it's got is a gacha game and some collabs. Although Senran Kagura 7's in hell right now next to that Demon Slayer mobile game that got delayed in 2020, Tamsoft was able to keep getting work because they're just that good at their job. While Senran Kagura was going, Idea Factory hired Tamsoft for some Neptunia spin-offs before the Senran crossover. Aquaplus grabbed them to actionize two of their How the fuck do you say this? Aquaplus grabbed them to actionize two of their Utawarerumono games, and Piki tossed them on a whole other game, Hinomaruko, which is also in the same hell as Senran Kagura 7. But aside from Marvelous, Tamsoft's biggest partner over the years has been D3. D3 is known for publishing some of the goofiest and some of the most deviant games I've ever played. They also had a line of low-budget games called the Simple series, which they regularly contracted Tamsoft to work on. And the series in which goofy shenanigans, horny shit, and low-budget fuckery all converged was OneeChanbara. OneeChanbara predates Senran Kagura by 7 years and follows the story of a cowgirl mowing down zombies. Unlike Senran Kagura, this one stuck with the same genre all its life, but it lasted just as long, running for a whole decade before Senran Kagura took up most of Tamsoft's attention. Now, what's particularly noteworthy about OneeChanbara's initial run is who bought D3 halfway through it. In 2009, 5 games in, Bandai bought D3. All the better games in the series, Bandai was at least aware of them. So it wouldn't surprise me if Gintama Rumble happened because Bandai saw Tamsoft be good at their job. We've seen this before. Why do you think From Software has 6 Gundam-adjacent games in their catalog? Back in 2020, during, I think, a CyberConnect 2 live stream, it was confirmed that Bandai held the rights to Bleach.
At the moment, the rights for the game are sort of held by Bandai Namco Entertainment. So if you guys really want to see a CC2 Bleach game, please contact Bandai Namco Entertainment.
I knew it was only a matter of time before a new game got announced, but who would make it? I had 3 hopes: Rakjin, Spike, or Tamsoft. Rakjin has developed 3 distinct Bleach games in the past, and I like them, so I figured they'd be a strong pick. They've also worked under Dimps on Saint Seiya, My Hero, and even Dragon Ball, so there's already a current connection to Bandai there. Spike did a great job portraying the Bleach characters in Jump Force, and Bleach has some level of flight, so I thought they'd be solid as well. Thankfully, Spike's on Sparking Zero instead, where they should be, and that just leaves Tamsoft. As a lover of big-ass titties, ninjas, and good combat, I've been saying for years that somebody should let Tamsoft take a crack at an arena fighter. After all, you take an action RPG, beat 'em up or whatever, add proper PvP, and then make some attempt to balance it, you've got an arena fighter. Last year, I tweeted that I needed at least 10 creators for a secret project. The only requirements were that you had to be open to play a game you probably never played before, you have a PC or PS4, and you like arena fighters. The plan was to buy everyone Estival Versus and run some matches. 1v1, 2v2, and the 10-person Battle Royale. As part of this Tamsoft agenda, I wanted people to try out one of their games and give their honest thoughts on how well they think Tamsoft would handle an arena fighter. I've been saying Tamsoft should work on an arena fighter for as long as I've been saying Bleach was getting a new game, and I had to throw those plans in the trash because the stars aligned in a way that I never expected.
Dick on hard.
I have not been this hyped over an anime game announcement since Bandai said Maxi Boost On was coming to consoles. K-Lab had me shook with their announcement, but I guess God heard my prayers and isn't mad anymore about all the shit I was talking about the Job situation. But the one question I know is on a lot of people's minds is, what took so long? Let's talk about marketing practices, cultural differences, and how both of those fucked Bleach over in the West. In the US, one of the things that helped Dragon Ball and Naruto was time. You get out of school, go home, and you're just in time to sit your ass in front of the TV when Dragon Ball Z comes on at 5 and 5:30. You wake up Saturday morning, get breakfast, and sit your ass in front of the TV to watch One Piece or Dragon Ball Z Kai before you really start your day. If you're old enough, you might wonder why Popo's a crip. When you get back home after your activities, you've got enough time to sit your ass in front of the TV and watch Naruto at 8. Dragon Ball and Naruto were always on TV at the perfect time for kids, their primary audience, to see it. Bleach was not, because it was on Adult Swim instead of Toonami. My guess for why is that, compared to the rest of the big three, Bleach was bloodier and harder to censor right out the gate, and didn't have a protagonist that looked like a goofy motherfucker. And of course, because Bandai wasn't involved until now, there was a lot less merch to sell. The best time to advertise to someone is right after what they're watching goes on commercial, and it's extra effective when it's directly related to what they're watching. I'm a big Saint Seiya fan. When Soul of Gold was on Daisuke, the first ad I saw while I was watching was for Soldier Soul. That's how that game got announced. Way before that, when I was watching Dragon Ball Z reruns, the first thing I saw when it cut to commercial was Tenkaichi 2. Marketing is extremely effective when done right, but that doesn't matter when your show is stuck at a time where what should be your primary audience is less likely to see it. And that's not even the worst of it. The old Bleach console games had two publishers, Sega on Nintendo hardware and Sony on PlayStation. Sega actually made an effort to bring a good amount of their games to the West, while Sony didn't do a goddamn thing. On his blog, CyberConnect 2 CEO Hiroshi Matsuyama mentioned the time he found out that anime games generally don't cover material that hasn't been animated yet. This isn't some rigid rule and you can get around it if you just ask, but the majority of anime games do follow this. I mean, unless they don't have an anime, which is not that common nowadays. Back in the day, similar practices were also done in the West. Zatch Bell Momoto Battles cut a filler character because the dub was nowhere near that episode when Momoto Battles came out. Naruto Ultimate Ninja 2 may have cut their movie character for a similar reason, depending on which date we want to consider. Ninja Clash in the Land of Snow had a one-day showing in the US a week before Ultimate Ninja 2 dropped, but the movie wouldn't really have been widely seen until it came out on DVD and hit Toonami 3 months later. That one's a toss-up. Ultimate Ninja 1 turned Ninetales, Naruto, and Cursemark Sasuke into secret characters instead of keeping them as part of Naruto and Sasuke's movesets, probably because they just finished the Force of Death when the game dropped over here, and those two were a pretty big deal. Uzumaki Chronicles 1 reworked a bunch of shit, including renaming the Rasengan and cutting every reference of content beyond the Leaf Destruction arc, because over here, we didn't see that yet. And don't even get me started on what happened to Grand Battle to get it in line with the 4K stuff.
Alright, you ready?
Sega's Bleach games had similar problems. On DS, The Blade of Fate came out in Japan in 2006 and in the West in 2008. Dark Souls hit Japan in 07 and the West in 09. The third Phantom hit Japan mid-08, the States got it in late 09, and Europe got it in early 2010. With Flamebringer being released in 09, it likely would have hit the West in 2011, right around the time the 3DS first came out. Bleach's one Game Boy Advance game came out in July 2005, 8 months after the anime aired. By the time the anime made it here, 2 years later in 2006, the DS had already been out in the States for 2 years. Seems kinda pointless to drop a Game Boy Advance game in 2006. On the console side, Shattered Blade, the only game that made it out west, came out around a year after it hit Japan. The GameCube game, which covers most of the Soul Society arc, came out in December 2005. The dub didn't even start that arc until early 2007. If we base the game's release off of where the anime was right at that moment, the GameCube game came out right after Ichigo vs. Byakuya. The dub got there in April 2008. Who the fuck is gonna drop a GameCube game in 08? The same thing applies to Versus Crusade. Versus Crusade came out in December 2008, long after Grimjaw got beat and the same week that Mayuri won his fight. Let's say, bare minimum, the dub just needed to be at the end of Ichigo vs. Grimjaw, as well as the Amagai shit, for Sega to release this game and not spoil people. The dub got there in 2011. Wait. You know, thinking about it now, Versus Crusade should have made it over. Arena fighters were a new thing in the eyes of anime gamers since Raging Blast and Storm were both out, and the Wii U wasn't due out for another year. Versus Crusade actually could have been a solid pull at the time, so I really don't know why it didn't make it over.
The world may never know.
Of their 8 Bleach games, Sega brought over 4. 50% isn't good, but in this case, it's not terrible either. And it's way better than what Sony brought over, which was fucking nothing. They had 14 games. 7 Heat the Soul, 2 each for Blade Battlers and Soul Carnival, Awaken Ambition, Selected Soul, and Soul Resurrection. And the only one that made it over had to be brought by NIS America. Sony didn't do that shit. After Versus Crusade, Sega stopped publishing Bleach games. And after the anime ended, Sony threw that shit in the dumpster. For the next 13 years, the only gaming a Bleach fan could look forward to was gacha shit and the occasional Jump collab. It was a terrible time, but now, thanks to a match made in hell, Bleach is getting the chance it deserved all those years ago. So here's what we know about the game so far. Story starting from the beginning of the series and going up to Aizen. We'll have more than the usual 1v1 fights, as we can already see Ichigo fighting Fishbone D and Grand Fisher showing up in general. Gameplay sounds like it'll rely heavily on counters and reversals, which is great, and include one-hit kills, which sounds like a terrible idea. But we'll see. Although we obviously don't know too much about Rebirth of Souls, I think I've got enough to go on to guess this roster. When built from scratch, Tamsoft games have, on average, less than 20 characters, but we may see at least 30, maybe 40-ish here. If we use Heat the Soul 7 as a reference, here's everyone I think would get cut. That would cut Heat the Soul 7's 63 character roster down to 42, which is more than enough to lay the groundwork for when the sequel covers the war. I know some people are upset that Rebirth of Souls won't cover it yet, but this is definitely the better way to go when you want your series to last. Build it up while providing an easier way to get into Bleach, then refine and perfect your game when you finally get to the good stuff. All things considered, I think Tamsoft was a great choice here. What sets them apart from pretty much every other arena fighter developer is that they have the most extensive and versatile experience in weapon-based combat, which is obviously very important for Bleach. Most of the others have maybe 1 or 2 sword fighters under their belt, maybe a shooter, but this is damn near Tamsoft's whole career here. They've done most of what anime fans typically ask for of these games. Solid combat system, all of them. Mob battles and boss fights, Senran Kagura's got it. Great movement, also Senran Kagura. Giant experience is gonna come in hand when we gotta fight Yami, and Burst Renewal and Zan got us covered. Want clashes? Shinobi Versus and Captain Tsubasa both have it. Actually, diverse characters is finally a staple in arena fighters, so we shouldn't have to ask for it, but just to be safe, all of them have it. Ranged characters aren't busted or shit to play in Estival Versus either. Thankfully, this is strictly a 1v1 game, but if we do need co-op or tag team attacks, Estival Versus has us covered again. We've already seen transformations, and this is another Tamsoft specialty. Every character in the Senran Kagura games has 3 movesets. Regardless of what kind of supers and finishers you like in your fighters, something slight, light cinematics, short cutscenes, or even a whole movie. Again, they've done it all. Speaking of cutscenes, we can already see Rebirth of Souls is cooking, but it didn't start there. So here's more stuff Tamsoft's made.
かつて陥落した幕府に背き謎の異星人と戦ったモノノフ上位志士彼らの怒涛の勢いにアマンとも奮戦戦は熾烈を極めたそんな中一人の男がこの荒れ果てた戦場に立ち瞬く間にアマントを打ち倒していったその男銀色の髪をなびかせ戦場を狩る姿はまさしく夜叉
あんたがアヤサキよく言うよね私のことなんか忘れてたくせにねえお姉ちゃんならさ妹のお願い聞いてくれる私お母さんを生き返らせたいのアヤお前の心臓を使って死んだ母さんを蘇らせて人を食らう化け物にでもするつもり母さんがそんなこと望んでいると思うのクソ親父に愛されたお前に何がわかるのお母さんのために私のために死んでよカズオここだおう何行け俺たちの真空中和だスカイラブハリケーンだこれは
男の戦いを汚してくれた。
私は生きなければならない。お前たちの心臓をも取り込んで。
母さんと父さんの仇、お前をぶった切る。
私はまだ死ぬわけにはいかぬのだ。がっかりねえ、こんな茶番にいつまで付き合うつもり？私ね、組織のクソどもをぶち殺して気づいたら皆殺しにしてきちゃった。たった一人に私はオリジンになれたのよ。これでやっとたった一人になれたのに。でもなんだろう、やっぱり何かが足りないの。あんたみたいに、いやあんたになりたいのに。私はあんたになりたいんだよ。
また誰かが悲しむ。
あんたも身道に狂わされた一人だったんだね。で、あんたの悲しみ、私が受け止める。
よかろう。いい加減目障りになってきたところだ。
兄様、
心配いらぬ。正常はもう折れたりはせぬ。しかし世話の焼ける王女さんだ。のんべんだらりとできたあの頃が懐かしい。まったくどうしてこうなった。こりゃ特別労働手当でももらわんと割に合わんな。
今なんて まさかまさか待て、こんなことは待てと調子に乗るな。ビツァルネミテアの天使とか言うておったが、案外大したことないのじゃな。まだ我に抗うというか、我の邪魔をしようと。何度でも戦おうぞ。そなたが倒れるまで何度でも立ち上がる。さすれば最後には世の勝ちじゃ。世は負けるわけにはいかぬのじゃ。彼、お母様、天からそうじゃ、きっとお父上が。誰だと心得る。ヤマトが天使、暗樹なるぞ。下がれ田舎者。
Tamsoft may be a better match for Bleach than most companies who've made anime games, but there are still some things we need to worry about. First off, although I think they consistently put out fire, they also made Schoolgirl Zombie Hunter. They don't have nearly as much experience handling online, and from what I've seen, heard, and played, the online experience in most of their games, except Shinobi Versus and Peach Beat Splash, has been kinda shitty. Not as bad as Eyes of Heaven though. Rebirth of Souls has the unique advantage of being the first new anime fighter developed after the rollback complaints, so maybe this reached Tamsoft in time to actually add it. This is also 1v1, thank God, so it'd be easier to get it done. Both Bleach and Tamsoft have been in kind of a slump. Bleach went 10 years without a console game thanks to a shitty licensing situation, and Tamsoft has had an iffy 6 years thanks to Senran Kagura being taken out back, Mariko presumably getting shelved, the Neptunia crossover being a disappointment, and Zon 2 still not being localized. But thanks to Bandai making good decisions with most of their big anime games, both Bleach and Tamsoft have a chance to leave their mark. I can't wait to see how far Bleach goes with that Bandai magic. The magic is money.